All right, it is another episode of the Harloff Podcast, and I cannot tell you how happy I am that you guys have been enjoying this show so much. I put it out there to get an inside look to all the personalities that you see, and whether it's Collider or Schmoes or just in the space for these kooky people that we have met over the years here at Schmoes Know, and I'm going to do it again. This week, I get to talk to a lady who I've always found intriguing and I've always got along with and had a lot of fun conversations with. And we had a conversation at lunch one day, and I told her that I would be doing a show like this eventually, and it happened. And today I get to talk to her, and it is the classy one herself, Clarke Wolfe. Hello, Clarke.
Oh, hi, Kristian. Thanks for having me.
Of course. It's nice to finally have you here to talk about God knows what, but we're going to figure it out now.
Yes.
Are you nervous?
No.
Okay, good. Because it was funny because she walked into the room. When I had Ashley Mova in here, she was like, what are you going to ask? What are you going to ask? Clark's like, get ready to learn all my secrets.
I don't mind talking about this stuff because I don't feel like I have to prepare. It's just
Let's
like,
talk.
yeah, it's just talking. So one of the most fun things I've done recently is Josh McCouga's show, actually.
Right.
Because it's just, talking to your buddies.
Yeah, you do. So that's what we're going to do here. I don't necessarily know where it's going to go, but I want to learn more about you. And that's kind of what I had asked you when we had lunch that day. And I want to know about Clarke Wolfe. Like, first of all, we know that you are this, we know how good you are in movie trivia, obviously. We learned that, and I'll get into how I exactly learned that before anyone else did. But to start, film.
Yeah.
And getting into this space, and today where we are, like, how does a young Clarke Wolfe decide that this is what she wants to do? What was the path?
Well, for me, I've always been interested in film, always, since I can remember, since I was little. I just really took to movies, and my dad, the first big one I remember is Wizard of Oz, and I think that's a good representation of the things I love because it's a spectacle, and it's Hollywood,
right.
but it's also heartfelt and funny, and then, my dad showed me movies a lot when I was a kid, so Back to the Future, I grew up on. I love Michael J. Fox, so Teen Wolf and Back to the Future.
Right.
We're little 3-year-olds.
Same year,
Clarke.
what a great year.
I was very into those. And Star Wars and Jaws and Labyrinth and all of these. Princess Bride, my dad showed me at a very young age. And it's really as simple as that. As far back as I can remember, I
always
loved
wanted to be
movies.
a good fella.
I always wanted to be a good fella. That's true.
Yeah, wanted to be a gangster. But yeah, so you're a movie gangster. That's,
Yeah.
So you fell in love with movies. And where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Atlanta. I grew
Okay.
up in a suburb of Atlanta, so kind of like the Orange County of Atlanta.
Okay. Where exactly in Atlanta?
Alpharetta.
Okay, so I'm wondering if you must have been. When I was in Florida, you were in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So you were in Atlanta for a while. What was growing up in Atlanta like for you? Were you the cool girl? Were you the nerdy girl? Were you? What were you like growing up?
Well, when I was little, I was always super sassy.
Yeah. Really?
Shock of shocks.
Where does that come from? Does that come from your mom? Does it come from your dad? Is that something you just developed? Like, where did you start? Like, just 2? Like, how old were you when you started?
There's a story that my mom tells where she had me sitting in a high chair before I could even talk, and or I wasn't talking much, and I was taking my food and throwing it on the floor.
Yeah.
And she said, "Clarke, if you do that again, I'm gonna spank your hand." And so I did it again, and then I stuck my hand out.
Like, I'm ready for it.
Yep.
You told me what the punishment
Yep.
is, and I will take that. You chose violence.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did.
yeah.
I was like, well, I'm really enjoying throwing my food on the floor, so you're not going to stop me.
Right.
So that I think is a really good representation or example of me. But no, my mom is super sassy. My dad is really funny and really fast, and I think I'm maybe hopefully a good blend of the two of them.
Do you have a pretty good relationship with your parents?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. They're still married, and I'm super close with my mom, and I'm super close with my dad, and my mom and dad and I all love spending time together.
No, that's good. So, and what about brothers and sisters? You got?
I do have one brother, and I am not close to him.
Not close to your brother.
No.
Okay. So then, growing up in Atlanta, what were you like in high school?
Yeah. So high school. When I was younger, I definitely elementary school, middle school. I definitely went through a little bit of a dark period.
What's the dark period?
I think how
old are we talking here?
So probably second grade through 8th grade.
Okay, so second grade, you have a dark period?
Yeah.
What's the dark period?
I mean, I think I was a little... There was just some stuff going on that I think was tough. And then...
like family stuff?
Yeah, yeah. And then I ended up gaining a lot of weight.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so...
Was that when you were really young? Or?
No, it was when it was like second grade. I definitely started eating a lot.
And what do you think that was? Was that were you sad? Or was that stuff that you just wanted, that was just kind of a device to...
It was probably, I think it's probably just, why do kids do a lot of things? I think it's probably coping and stuff like that. But what was interesting was I remember very specifically when I was in the 8th grade deciding. So I had tried out for the cheerleading squad, and they put me on it, and I was definitely a charity pick for sure.
Right.
But I remember thinking, I'm going into high school. Nobody will know me there because it's like the middle school is all feed in to and there's 4 grades or 3 grades above you. And I was like, there's theater there. I can do theater, and I can, and I'm part of the cheerleading squad, however I got on it. And so why don't I just maybe take this summer and sort of like reinvent myself a little?
Right.
And that's what I did.
How overweight are we talking here? Are we talking 10 pounds, 15
No,
pounds?
it was more than that.
Really? Okay, cool. So then I think that's kind of an inspiring story because you are certainly not overweight now. And when do you... First, what is the moment where you say, okay, look, I'm going to drop the weight. I'm going to kind of go into, I'm going to stop kind of, guess the device goes away.
Right. That's the thing is I think it was, because for me, I was always super, super, super skinny. Like when I was a little girl, because I was just a picky eater.
Right.
And so I think for, like, everybody has a coping mechanism. Like, I don't do drugs. Despite what some of the Schmoes people think, I don't drink a lot.
We're going to get into that in a little bit. Yeah.
And so I think for me, I just I love food, and I do love food. And so for me, that was the decision, though. It wasn't a hard decision. The decision was, hey, maybe don't eat when you're not hungry.
Right.
Not do anything crazy, and take this opportunity of working out with the cheerleading squad and all of that, and just see what happens. And what happened was I evened out.
Right, and that was going into high school.
Yeah, going into high school.
That's and still, I think, look, we know kids can be mean.
Yeah.
So did kids pick on you at all?
Definitely.
You did.
Yeah, when I was little, for sure, I got picked on a lot, and also, I think.
Because of the weight and stuff, too?
Yeah, for sure. And also, by the way, I was a nerd. I'm still a nerd, and I was a nerd then. I'm the only girl in the 4th grade who's wearing a Batman Forever t-shirt.
That's tough. Yeah, that's tough because I've got family members that are a little, there's some that are overweight and younger, and it is tough because you remember how kind of cruel kids can be, and especially when you are a girl and you're into Batman and you are not comfortable in your own skin at that time, it's got to be tough.
And glasses. I've been wearing these since I was, in the 5th grade. But the other thing was, all my girlfriends, I had 2 really close girlfriends in my neighborhood who I'm still friends with to this day. I'm maid of honor in one of their weddings this summer, by the way. But they were really gorgeous, and so it was definitely interesting because I think when you're in that middle school time period, you're just starting to interact with boys and all of that stuff,
right.
and they definitely were not interested in me.
But was the sass still there?
Oh, definitely.
It was.
Oh yeah, and so nobody
That's why that must have been why you said that the cheerleader that you were a pity pick, but I can see you not being a pity pick because it's that personality. They probably be silly for them not to have you.
Yeah, maybe it was a combination of both, but I liked doing it, and this is to say that I had a great time in high school. I did. Now, do I want to go back there? No, I'm not one of those people who longs for the glory days necessarily.
But high school for you was better than the 2nd and 8th grade.
Definitely.
So you get into high school, and freshman year you drop the weight.
Yeah.
And you do that. So then because this is something that especially having a daughter, that I'm starting to get nervous about. So the interest that you have, obviously wearing the Batman shirts, and where do you go from saying, okay, look, you drop the weight, you go and you still have your concerns. I'm curious what kind of student you were, and I'm also curious to what point all your hobbies say, well, I kind of like boys now.
Oh,
too.
Well, first things first. I've always liked boys.
Yeah,
since I was little.
But the confidence came back though.
Definitely,
in high school.
Definitely. I think for me, I was always a little old for my age, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And
your poor father.
yeah. And it's funny. We should talk about that because I'm super close with my dad. But for me, with high school, I think because I was actually becoming an adult, like getting a driver's license or getting a job, that is a lot of why I started to excel, I think, because being a kid just didn't work for me, if that makes sense.
You're an old soul.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I've been told.
I see it.
But yeah, so for me, the interest, I was always going to movies. My dad took me to movies all the time.
Right.
And then still, watching a lot, reading entertainment. I had an Entertainment Weekly subscription since I was 10.
Oh, wow.
And I was published in Entertainment Weekly when I was like
cool.
12 or 13.
Really? For
yeah.
What?
I wrote in because I was actually complaining about the trailer for Unbreakable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think I still have it somewhere, but basically I was just like, they totally misled us with this, and that was not cool. They said that this was going to be like 6.
Does not surprise me at all. I could totally see a 12-year-old Clarke Wolfe I'm going to write them and tell them what's on my mind.
That's
It's
right.
amazing. And then you stuck your hand out and let him hit you with the spoon.
I sure did, and they published it.
Yeah.
And my mom got a phone call, and they were like, "Is Clarke Wolfe there?" And my mom was like, "No, she's not." And they said, "Well, because I was at school," and they were like, "Well, we just want to let her know that we're going to be publishing her letter in Entertainment Weekly." And my mom was like, "Well, she's 12 and at school right now, but I'll let her know."
They didn't know how old you were?
No.
Oh, that's amazing.
No.
Oh, you got to bring that in.
I will.
You got to post that on Instagram.
Yeah, I'll find it
Please,
somewhere.
that's so good. Okay, so you're not getting to the other stuff,
Oh,
though.
the boys.
Yeah, this is what we got to find out, because this scares me.
Okay, so, I always liked boys. I always did. I always, but, I think with my big personality, perhaps maybe boys were a little scared of me.
Intimidated a little bit?
Yeah, maybe. And then in high school, I really only had one boyfriend, and he was like when I say a nerd, because we throw that word around a lot, and I'm certainly not afraid of that word at all, but he was almost 1540 on his SATs, real book smart, and I met him through the theater program,
okay.
and he was a year older than me, and we were friends first, and then there was a lot of drama, because there always is.
Right.
But we ended up dating my senior year of high school and my freshman year of it was junior year and senior year of high school.
So that was and he was your first boyfriend?
Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't really date up until junior year.
I went out on dates.
Right.
Like any 15-year-old, I guess. And there was one boy I remember who was a year older than me, so he had a car, and he came and picked me up, and we went on a date, and I was not into him.
Not into him at all.
No.
So so what kind of guys? Obviously, the nerdy guy was the guy that got your heart in high school. But are you always a nerdy guy?
No, the first guy I had a real crush on in high school, because as I said, this was all new people. So I was like, oh man, baseball player. He was super tall.
Yeah.
He was really handsome, really Southern. I was like, that guy.
So you don't have a specific type?
No, I don't. I really, really don't.
To this day?
To this day, nope.
Okay.
No, I don't.
If I ask you any questions you don't want to answer, you just tell me to move on.
I will.
Okay. First time you had a kiss, how old were you?
15 or 16.
15, so right around the same time.
Yeah.
Wasn't the baseball player, was it?
No,
okay.
He never gave me the time of day.
No?
No.
You just okay, well.
Never did. He liked my friend Callie.
Was it the nerdy guy that got it? That got the kiss?
No, it was a guy at a party. A guy at a party, and I kissed him, and I was like, ooh, fun. And then, but he was not then that was it. That was all for him.
Yeah, I'm so interested in that though too, because it's at what point to where, because there's some moments obviously that are sacred with the first time you have sex, first time you have a kiss.
Yeah.
And it's when you're looking and you're going, yeah, tonight I'm gonna kiss that dude.
Or he kissed me.
And you just went with it.
And it was oh yeah, totally. And I was like, whatever. And this is the thing, because you have to keep in mind, I was growing up in the South.
Right.
And in a very, a middle-class suburb in the South.
Right.
So girls like me were not necessarily the object of a lot of people's affection.
Right.
I think I was a little too much for them.
Right.
Not all of them, obviously, and also I think too, and I learned this the hard way when I finished college. I was really blind to the idea that anyone could be interested in me because of the because of like the previous growing up and in middle school and so awkward. And why would they want to talk to you? They want to talk to your friend, obviously.
Right, and that's the way you felt going for a long time. And when did that go away?
Honestly, not till I was an adult.
Okay.
I mean, and it was just, it took, there was this guy that I started dating in, it was my senior year of college, and I was getting ready to move to LA.
Okay.
And I had already made this plans, and I had met this guy here, and I was so in love with him. In LA? In LA.
Okay.
And so it was this like long distance thing, but I met this guy in Atlanta while I was there, and he was the complete opposite of this jerk in Los Angeles.
Really?
Yeah. And he was sweet, and boy, did he like me, and he was cute, and he was funny, and he was talented, and I didn't get it.
You didn't understand why he liked you?
I just didn't even understand that he did like me.
Oh, really?
I was just like, I kind of, for some reason,
different with the guys, because the guy, he didn't just tell you?
No.
Really?
No, it just didn't click for me.
Okay.
And then towards the end, when I was really getting ready to go to LA, he and I like definitely started having a romantic relationship.
Okay.
And
who went for it though? He finally went for it though.
Yeah, we were both actors. He's still a professional actor in Atlanta, and he came to one of my shows. I was in Barefoot in the Park.
Okay.
I was the lead choreographer, and he came to one of my shows, and we went out with his friend afterwards. All had a great time, but we had drinks and we were celebrating all this stuff, and that was the night that everything clicked.
Right.
And I remember, like, God, that is the one. Like, I could count on 3 fingers the regrets that I have in my life.
That's great.
I don't have a lot of them.
Yeah.
But the way that things went down with that guy, not that they were bad.
Right.
But it's like, he stayed in Atlanta. He's married now.
Right.
It's
the what ifs.
It's the what ifs.
It's the what ifs.
Yes.
That always happens. That happens with everybody too. I mean, I'm happily married with a kid, and when I made dumb decisions in college too, and I was like, oh well, maybe if I didn't do that particular thing or that, but then but you know what? It's the butterfly effect, because you don't know if you would have wound up where you are right now had you not made the good and bad decisions.
Yeah.
So
for sure. I mean, the thing that is the what if is less about him and more about the fact that I chose a really bad guy over a really good guy.
Did you find yourself doing that a lot with choosing the bad guys, or is it maybe because you said you don't have a type.
Right.
So have you ever gone, because women like the bad boys. Do you find yourself falling for the bad boys? You said sometimes to be a bad boy, sometimes, like you said, the guy you just talked about, like more guys like that. Who gets the Clarke Wolfe attention more?
I think it's more about, I know it's so cliche to say, but I think it's more about confidence.
Yeah.
If anybody approaches you with any kind of confidence in themselves specifically,
right.
And I mean real confidence, not like arrogance.
Right.
That is attractive. However, I think that what I find is that that confidence can be misleading. It might not necessarily reflect how someone feels about themselves, and that's what I think I run into a lot.
Got it.
Is look, all my warts and all, I am who I am, and I'm pretty confident in that.
Right.
I like who I am.
It's all out on the table with you. Yeah.
I am not. I don't hide things
at all.
No,
I don't think so. I think you, from just a few conversations, you know exactly who you are.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to pull punches.
No.
And you'll say what's on your mind.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned something briefly that I wanted to talk about, and that's your acting. Because that was where you were going.
Yeah.
You and I both theater majors.
Yeah, right? I was a film major.
You were a film major. I went for my film major, didn't get it, so decided to stick with the theater, and I did. I was a theater major with a communications minor. Yeah. But so you're approaching acting. You want to do acting, and at what point do you say, no, I think I'm going to go after something else here?
Well, so I had been doing theater since I was very little, and when I was a film major in college, I was a professional actor in Atlanta, a theater actor. And when I came out to LA, I realized that the stuff I'm doing now kind of clicked a lot faster.
Right.
I was getting traction there. I didn't want to, I knew very quickly that I was not going to be an actor who booked a commercial and then booked a guest star and then
You're realistic.
Yes. I mean, that was the thing. Is
a lot of people come out here not very realistic.
But if the agents aren't biting, if the people aren't biting, then what are you gonna do?
Right.
So as a result, the hosting things that I was doing and the interviews that I was doing and carpets and all of that started to gain traction.
Right.
And I went that way, kind of also knowing, by the way, that you're Olivia Munns, you're Joel McHale's, you're whoever. Like, at the end of the day, the truth is, if you have any kind of following, you're going to get into a room a lot faster.
Yeah.
And that is still the path I'm pursuing. I had my agents put me up for two scripted roles recently.
So you are still acting?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
And I still do live. Like, I love doing live reads.
Yeah.
For any of you guys listening who are screenwriters, where you can get a group of people, an audience together, and then people sit and they read the script, but you get to hear it out loud and they act it out. That is one of my favorite things to do.
You love doing that.
I love doing it.
Yeah. So okay. So the goals are just that we got to put you in the Schmoes No series.
Oh yeah. I'll audition for you.
We should. Well, I don't. You're not going to audition. Probably write you in there. But so you're still going after it. But when do you discover the hosting stuff? Like, when do you start doing that?
It was when I was probably. It was maybe 2 or 3 years coming out here. This group this student film festival called Campus Movie Fest. It's the biggest student film festival in the world, and I started working with them at my college. They give you basically all the equipment you need to make a movie for free. Right. And I had been doing stuff with them since my time, and then they kept bringing me back. What it was this kid who was the ambassador to the program said, hey, in my film class, one of my film classes, he was like, hey, do you want to be a judge for this film festival? And I was like, sure. And then he said, well, you do a lot of theater. Do you want to host the local show?
Right.
And I was like, sure. And from then on, they kept bringing me back.
And you like doing it.
And I mean, because you get in front of people and you're getting to be funny and tell jokes, and I like doing that.
Right.
And so they brought their grand finale out here to Los Angeles. It was on the Paramount lot the first time.
Okay.
And they called me and said, hey, do you want to be like our Joan Rivers? Do you want to be on the carpet and talk to the celebs that we have coming? And I said, sure. And then they brought me back every year after that. But also I met a mentor who was a daytime talk producer.
Okay.
She came from Entertainment Tonight and Access Hollywood. And so she sort of mentored me a little, not necessarily with...
Nancy O'Dell, isn't it?
No, it certainly wasn't. It certainly was. She was a producer. But no, it wasn't necessarily like she was making connections for me.
Right.
She was, let me look at your reel. Let me suggest what I need to, what I would need to see to book you, like, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
And then from there, it was really AMC Movie Talk that was like the first thing that launched me into the nerd culture.
That's where I was going to say. So that AMC then introduced you to this crazy YouTube world that we're all in right now. Because I didn't get involved with AMC until 2014. Well, I did a couple appearances at the end of 2013, but you were gone at that point.
Yep.
You've had an interesting road.
Yeah.
Through all of that. So let's talk about this Man of Steel thing.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about it.
Because this is the thing that I had heard. Because you always hear from conversations like, well, this happened, and then this happened, and this is, so nobody really knows what the hell happened until you hear it out of the horse's mouth. Now, from when the first time I met you was at the Toad Hop Network. Because let's start with that first. Because how the hell did you get involved with us? Like, how? Because this is how I kind of remember.
Right.
Because you met Mark Ellis first?
Yes. So Mark Ellis went on a show on Clever called It's a Wrap.
Yes.
That Aaron hosted.
I was on that also. Yeah.
So that's where I met Mark Ellis, and he and I bonded over our love of the Top Gun soundtrack.
Perfect.
Because the question was best movie soundtracks, and I think I said Top Gun.
Playing with the boys.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And Mark, you can watch the video of Mark doing a double take and being like, who is this person who just said that? But so he and I met there and started keeping up on social media.
Yeah.
And then I was working with Erin Darling on her project, The Pop Fix, which was, like a entertainment, girl entertainment channel. And so I asked Mark if he would have coffee with me and tell me about the Schmoes path.
Okay.
Because I was very curious about how you guys kind of got where you were.
Right.
And so he and I talked for like an hour, and then he said, come to one of the tapings.
Right.
And so I was like, sure. So I came and I just sat and I watched.
Yeah, I remember that. that. I remember when you came in, and you I forget what it was, but we talked, I think, briefly afterwards.
Very briefly, because we went to Buffalo Wild. I went to Buffalo Wild Wings, but I was mostly talking to Ellis, and I don't remember who else, but someone else that I knew who was there.
Now, when you walked in, what did you like? And it's fine if you thought it was an absolute shit show. Like, what did you think when you first saw the taping of the Schmoes show? I'm curious, as someone who is coming into that and not knowing kind of what was going on with the personalities.
Right.
Like, how did you feel in that atmosphere?
Well, honestly, for me, I didn't think it was a shit show at all. I mean, I think that, if you work in production, God, we were taping AMC Movie Talk in a closet.
Right.
So the fact that you guys had a team, and it seemed like radio to me, but like Stern kind of radio.
Yeah.
And so I actually was like, this is great. And I knew who you guys were, and I knew what was up, so I wasn't shocked or surprised or anything like that. And I thought it was cool. The fact that you guys have your own thing, like you were saying, with the characters, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And I just thought that was awesome. So that was my initial impression.
Okay, so then then Mark and I started doing AMC, and then you were gone.
Yeah.
When I got there, and then from whether it's high school or college or whatever it is you are working, you hear stories.
Yeah.
Story I heard, there were rumors. The first rumor is that you were fired because you didn't like a movie, and then another rumor was that you left because you didn't want to talk about Man of Steel anymore, and then there's another thing that you didn't like other people there. Like, what the hell really happened there?
So the story is so boring. Like, if I told,
it's like the rumors are better.
Yeah. Oh, they're absolutely better. First of all, for all of you Man of Steel conspiracy theorists, look at the tapes. We shot the Man of Steel review the night Man of Steel opened, and it was during E3, so it was in early June.
Right.
I didn't disappear till after Comic-Con.
Right.
If they were gonna let me go over Man of Steel,
right,
why would they keep me around for 6 weeks and then be like, oh, by the way, you didn't like Man of Steel, so you're fired?
Well, I'm very accustomed to YouTube rumors in a way that they spread from one comment. So it happens. So one person wrote a comment, and that comment probably trickled into all these stories, and then people start talking.
It was just comical because really I had 6 weeks worth of shows.
Right.
And so it was like, I don't even understand how that thrives because I didn't disappear after Man of Steel. Do you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't even make sense.
No. So what happened? You just wanted to do other things at that point?
No, I did get fired.
Okay.
I did get fired, and Campia has said that he fired me.
Okay.
And it was over a scheduling issue.
Scheduling. You just were doing other things at the time, maybe.
Yeah, I had something else booked. There wasn't enough notice for me to change that, and that was not acceptable to John, so he let me go.
Okay, so when I first started talking,
it's really boring, by the way, right? That is, I mean, it's the most anticlimactic, like, pew!
You know what it's called? It's called shit that happens.
Yeah, I mean,
it's called shit that happens, and it was, you obviously kept a good relationship because here you are today.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you came, and for people are like, well, the reason she's back is because John's in here. She was back.
No, John brought me back on AMC Movie Talk. It wasn't even Collider. He brought me back on AMC Movie Talk.
I remember that because when we were still at AMC, we were planning on using you more and more at the AMC again. So, okay. So then, when you and I really, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, where we started to really start to have more conversations and start to talk more is when we were both doing shows over at Geek Nation.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I
think that we kind of run into each other because I was taping Far, Far Away at the time, and you were taping the Bloodcast. And it was around, you guys either taped right before us, I think so, before us. So then we'd have those little conversations for, you know people in the space, and you get along with people. You say, oh, we have our little side conversations for a little bit. And then when we started the Schmoes Know Network for a little bit before it eventually turned into the Popcorn Talk Network, you and I had talked about doing a horror show back then.
Yes.
So that's kind of always where the impetus has been for what now is today. Nightmares. So, but anyway, so let's talk about horror. Like, what is it? Because you talked about these other movies that you liked and that kind of got you into movies, but you are, like I am with Star Wars when it comes to horror. Like, when was that? Who was in the horror movies? How did you discover that you were a horror fan?
You know what I was thinking about? I remember I was thinking about it last night, and with regards to Ghostbusters, because Ghostbusters 2 was definitely the first movie that scared the shit out of me.
The second one did.
Yeah, because I was 2, maybe 3 when I saw it, and it was Vigo coming out of the wall. Yeah. A man coming out of the wall who's evil and a demon. I was like, this is horrifying.
Right.
But for me, I've always loved dark fantasy. I've always liked being scared, but I am scareable. Do you know what I mean? Right. So little me.
You're not like just sitting there with your arms folded going, you can't get me on this one. I've seen it all.
No way. Yeah. No way. And so little me, would watch scary movies like with my older cousins and be traumatized. Right. And then it was, I had this great babysitter who I'm still friends with today. And she really introduced me to Tim Burton, and she really introduced me to Jim Henson. And so I would watch, Beetlejuice or Labyrinth or Legend or these Neverending Story, like things that have scary things in them, but they're more fantasy oriented. And then when I was 12, I saw The Exorcist for the first time, and that scared the shit out of me.
I talked about that today in Movie Talk. I said that it's the one movie when I was younger, I was like, nah, I'm good. And then I went back later to appreciate it as an older film fan, but like as a kid, couldn't do it.
It's a really, and what's funny is I don't have there's no religious ties to why that movie scared me. Right. It just was too scary for me.
It's a scary movie.
It's really
Do you believe
scary.
in that stuff though?
What,
as
demons
far as exorcisms
and the devils
and like, yeah, are you? I guess I didn't get it because especially living in Atlanta, are you a religious person?
Well, I have a family who, no one in my family is Christian.
Okay.
And so we weren't growing up, but it wasn't until I got a little older that I actually embraced being Jewish. And so yeah, I consider myself Jewish for sure.
Okay.
But with the sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just curious as far as your religion in general goes, like, because I didn't know if you practice Judaism, if you, like, you do.
I do, definitely. I do, yeah. I mean, I would definitely think that I'm more Reform, but I think Reform because I don't have anyone to do anything with.
Right.
So, like, if that makes sense, like, I don't have friends or a husband or kids to go to be a part of the community with, and I feel like as a single person in LA, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's very family oriented. Like, for instance, the synagogues or temples that I enjoy going to, they're really family oriented, so I don't really feel like I fit in there necessarily. And then, so I kind of like, I observe for sure, but I sort of do it on my own at this point.
Okay, and then I'm jumping back into something, like I said, I'm going to pick up on little things that you said.
Yeah.
Single.
Yeah.
So is that right now by choice, tried it out, right? If I'm just going to do, someone comes, great, but I'm focused on a career, or
No. The last guy I dated left my birthday party and never talked to me again.
Really? What happened there?
I have no idea.
How long have you seen the guy?
Almost 3 months.
Wait, and just left, and you never got an answer?
Nope.
Not even a phone call?
No.
Did something happen that you were drunk at the party?
No. He stayed for 10 minutes.
Was he a spy or something? He's like,
that would
fighting,
be a cool story if he was.
Right now, it's like Jason Bourne or something.
That would be awesome. I don't know. It was just your typical ghosting situation. Like, he's like, hey, I'm going to go. And I was like, oh, you've been here for 10 minutes. What? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to go. Like, he wasn't mad. And I was like, did something happen?
Right.
Or, and he was like, no, I'm just going to go. And I was like, okay.
And that's it.
And then I
never heard from the guy.
I texted him that night and said, hey, thanks for coming. Hope everything, have a great time with your friend who's in town this week. Or I said, sorry if things got crazy. I mean, it was a big party, but it wasn't like lame or mean or like.
Was that the first time you met your friends?
No. Because I had a birthday dinner that he came to, and then,
it went over well.
And it was great. Everybody got along super well. And then we had spent all day at the Monster Palooza convention.
He's a Russian spy.
That would be cool if it was. Then I'd feel better. But yeah, no. And I just was like, sorry if everything was crazy, but thanks for coming. And he was like, you don't have anything to be sorry for.
So he wrote you back.
You don't have anything to be sorry for. Hope you had fun.
And that was the last you heard of him.
Literally the last.
Fell off the map.
Yep. And I didn't reach out again.
Well, you don't want to date that guy anyway.
No, I mean, certainly not.
You want a guy that's talk about confidence.
That likes me?
Come
on.
But I mean, a guy that, even with who the hell knows what the guy was going through, what kind of issues that he had. But like, you want somebody that's going to call you up and say, like you said, the confidence, to at least the confidence to say, I got to be honest with you. I didn't have a good time at the party. There was somebody out there to me that was just rubbing me the wrong way, and I don't like the way you were that night. At least he tells you that.
Or I was overwhelmed because it was too much, and I'm an introvert or whatever it is.
It was.
Like, that's
was he like an introvert?
I think he was an introvert extrovert.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
But still, like, wouldn't you tell me that?
Of course, you should have said something.
The thing is too, like, I think the misconception is that people who have strong personalities want somebody who is a weak personality or want,
I don't think so.
Well, I hope it's not, because like for me, I need somebody to tell me, hey, you're being an idiot,
right,
or no, you're right. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I had an ex like that. That was more very, like, she was very much like me, to where it was strong, spoke her mind, like very like dominant to a lot of people too. And I'm not someone that takes a dominant personality, of course, but we worked for a little bit, but then we didn't because a lot of explosions happened. But that's a different thing than saying that we didn't, when it didn't work, it worked pretty well.
And that's temperament too, by the way. Like, believe it or not, I'm not an explosive personality. I can get mad, sure, but I'm not a yeller and a screamer. I'm also not a my way or a highway person.
Right.
I'm pretty flexible, unless I have strong feelings about something, and then I will let those be known. But honestly, I know it's hard for a lot of people to believe, but I'm really not this person who like railroads people, you know?
I don't see that. But after the Mad Dasher takes off, right now it's just whoever comes on.
That's the thing. I mean, I've tried. I look around.
LA's tough.
LA is very hard to date in. I mean, it just is. There's no two ways about it.
It's true. It's very, very tough out here as far as the dating scene goes. But it's also, I feel like there are, like, and I'm sure you get offers all the time, dates and stuff too.
Not as much as you think. Yeah, no.
Surprised.
I think it's because too, maybe everybody assumes that everybody, like, there's no photos of my personal life on the internet.
Well, that's smart.
It's all work or friends.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to jump into something you just said, though, too, because you are, and this kind of loops back into everything we're talking about here. And we'll start with from the AMC thing, because right away, from there, jumping into the space at AMC and learning the YouTube space, that's also the first time, I'm sure, that you learned about the good and the bad of the YouTube comments.
I think the scale, that was the thing that I had no idea about. So when we recorded the Man of Steel thing, that was like the biggest video AMC had put out at that time.
Right.
And I had no idea. I mean, I just had no...
About what was coming, the tidal wave.
No, none. Zero.
You were just talking. You were just getting
your opinion. And also,
I've
got to say, people, the way people react or phrase, it's like you said, one person says something and then it just gets picked up. If you watch that commentary, it's not me sitting there being like, fuck this and fuck you.
I would have paid money for that.
This is the thing, is that
it's some weird accent. Fuck this and fuck you.
I turned into Danny McBride, basically.
Yeah,
but no,
that's a great name for a show. Fuck this and fuck you with Clarke Wolfe.
Boy, I could make one too.
I can see the tweets coming out.
This is the thing, is that I tell people privately all the time. Oh boy, if only you knew what I really thought of that movie, because I've tried to be
back a bit.
Very diplomatic.
Yeah.
Because look, at the end of the day, film is subjective, we all know this. Also, making a movie on that scale, not easy to do.
Right.
Lots happening.
Right.
Look at Michael Shannon, for instance. Like, Michael Shannon in that movie, there are very few traces of the weird, eccentric Michael Shannon that we know. So what I'm saying is that I take all of that into consideration when I talk about film. And if you watch it, it's like, oh, she hated Man of Steel. And it's like, yeah, I didn't like the movie. But did I sit there and just trash it at every turn? No. But did I talk about what the problems I had with certain scenes were? Yeah, I did.
And then the comments were just fast and furious.
Oh, yeah,
you see that. Now, there's something, though. There's something that can be said about passionate fans that put out a response to you of why they don't agree with you.
Sure.
Which is fine.
Sure.
Then you get people who just push the limits.
Yeah.
And that continues on today.
Yes.
How do you deal with, because it is a lot harder to be a woman in this space. It really is. Like, speaking to Ashley and with Miri, having my conversations in the past with Alicia Malone, and then knowing the things that you've gone through on social media to, like, do you ever say, when you look at some of these comments, like you said, fuck this and fuck you, I'm not doing this anymore?
Well, I do think fuck this and fuck you a lot.
Yeah.
But I think that 9 times out of 10, look, here's how I would explain it. Somebody commenting, I hate your voice and you talk with your hands and you're annoying. That's trolling.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I don't sit at home reading comments looking for you're pretty and smart and I love you and you're perfect.
Right.
But stuff that is like, you deserve to be raped because you didn't like the second Suicide Squad
and you
teaser.
have gotten stuff like
that.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that is...
You've gotten death threats.
Yeah, and that's not trolling. Like, that is legitimate harassment.
That's dangerous.
That's dangerous.
Yeah.
And so to me, these things are... I just think... Here's what I think. Not saying that men don't get death threats, because they certainly do.
I have.
Yeah, they certainly do. But when people wonder why there aren't as many women who are public or in the space, reading stuff like you should be raped and I hope your dog gets killed and all that stuff. Like, sexual violence, the threat of sexual violence.
I
do have a dog.
Okay.
I do have a dog.
So someone just making that
No.
Okay.
But my point is just that taking it to those levels, it's just like, it's unsettling, but it's also, it's like, what? This is out of whack.
Yeah.
But
there's some guy sitting there going, you know what? I'm never going to meet this person. Right. And not realizing there's consequences behind it.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So, but you don't, and I also feel that it's, you let them win if you were to shut down the account and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, but you never get to that point where you're just like, why am I doing this? I'm not, because some people have that. I'm either going to quit social media or maybe I won't do this anymore, but you've never had those thoughts.
No, I mean, no one's gonna, this is the sassy pants coming out again, but like, what, fuck you. You think you're gonna win?
Right.
Fuck you, you're not winning.
Right.
You're not winning, and also, I don't like your face. Oh, boo-hoo. Oh, you're ugly. Oh, ugh. Like,
suck it, pal.
I give no fucks about, I want to be clear, please do not tweet me, you're ugly and I fucking hate you on repeat. Right. Like, I'm not inviting it, but at the end of the day, as a human being and as a person, you have
to brush it off, especially in that space.
But I do think that with the internet, I will be honest with you, the culture of apathy, of well, that's just the internet. I do think that's a real shit attitude.
I agree.
And I don't think, well, that's just the internet.
Well, it's the Wild Wild West, and there's no way to police it. So,
right now.
Do you think that, because it's something that you said before too, do you think that some people find you abrasive?
Sure.
And I don't. I think that, and do you think that is because, like you said, you speak your mind? You don't hold back, and maybe it is because you're a woman.
I think it's definitely because I'm a woman. Yes, I'm not afraid to say that for sure. But again, what's funny is, if some of you only knew what I actually thought.
Right.
The thing is,
well, why don't you ever say what you actually? Because you always say what you think, just because you don't want because there's a little bit of a filter on, is what you're saying.
Yes, I don't lie.
No, you never lie.
I never lie,
no.
and because I'm a horrible
liar. I don't think you know how to lie.
I don't. Yeah, I really don't.
I don't think you would know how to do that.
But what's funny is, I will point out that
this is why I know the answer to this question. Have you ever cheated on anyone?
No.
That's exactly why, and I believe it 100%, because I don't think you'd be able to.
No, of course not. No way. But I think that, so here's what I'd say. When you or Schnepp or Campea goes on one of the rants, a rant.
I've never had a rant.
Never in a million years. When you guys do it, it's funny. If I do it, it's annoying and obnoxious.
Interesting. Why do you think that is? I mean, I can understand where you say people say that. I don't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I've seen you go on rants. I enjoy your rants.
Here's where I think the difference is. I think for a lot of people, it is very uncomfortable for them to know that a woman feels just as passionately about that nerd thing as they do.
Is that kind of maybe going back to what we just talked about with the relationships, with the fact that you said that it's hard sometimes with the strong will, they don't want to see someone who's stronger than them, or maybe. I
mean, look, I think there's a Michaela Watkins, you know who she is?
No,
actress. She's a comedian. She was on Saturday Night Live. She's on the show Casual. I spoke with her the other day, and we have a friend in common, and she said, "Oh, I love his wife. She's known him since he was in college." And she goes, his wife is just an example, or just further proof that there is a lid for every pot.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I love that. And I do think there's a lid for my pot.
Of course there is.
But I do think it's a special lid. It's not every lid.
Well, every special. I mean, I think that's the reason why people wind up getting married to the right person, why your parents are together, as long as because they find that special pot. Because there are a lot of times people get married and it's the wrong pot.
And I did want to mention this because I'm super close to my dad.
Yeah.
And I think something that's interesting is that, first of all, my parents always treated me like an adult. So I sat with them and their adult friends as a small child, and I participated in conversation. They asked me what I thought about things. My dad, who is an attorney, asks me what I think about things, and I tell him, and we don't always agree. Sometimes we do.
What kind of attorney?
Criminal defense.
That makes so much sense now. Oh my God, that makes so much sense.
So my dad has always, since I was little, treated me with respect.
Yeah.
Therefore, men do not intimidate me.
Right.
Because my dad is a big guy.
And your dad has given you a lot.
He's treated me like a person.
Yeah. Well, because you mention your dad often, that's why I'm even when we'll talk about the Schmodown in a second too. But but yeah, like that's, you can tell, and that makes a lot of sense. So he was, but you got along with your mom too.
Yeah.
But more with your dad. Yeah. So you're your daddy's girl.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my mom and I we're close now.
Close.
For sure.
And that took a little bit.
Yeah, for
sure. Was that high school stuff or just learning about yourself a little bit more?
I think it's a combination of just a whole lot of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So like I mentioned just briefly here with the Schmodown.
Uh-huh.
So the movie trivia, Schmodown, it was the ultimate Schmodown. In 2014 is when we started it. Mm-hmm. But I showed you, I remember at Movie Talk, we were AMC, but we were at the brand new studios
correct.
now, and you were a guest. And I was watching like a previous team match, and you're like, "Oh, what are you watching? What are you watching?" And I'm like, "Oh, we do this thing," and I was kind of telling you about it. And I tell you guys, this is how I discovered that Clarke Wolfe was a beast at trivia. I was playing it, and she goes, "Oh, I want to play along. I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then, my Vince McMahon brand, I'm like, "Let me see how she does." And I'm watching, and as you're just like nailing the questions. And I said to you, "You'd be good at this," and you're modest the same way, because we just had a conversation off air about your next match, which I'm going to lose. You've said that I'm going to lose every time that you've appeared so far. But at what point did you say, when I was showing you that the first time, I want to play in this thing? Because you're a competitive person too.
I am. I'm competitive with myself, though. That is the thing, is that, like I said this on Josh's show, when I went up against him, I didn't want to beat Josh. I just didn't want to lose, if that makes sense.
And you were proving yourself the first time to the audience.
Totally. Yeah. But because they didn't note the Schmoes audience, see, this is the other thing, not to detour, but like with the After Hours show, we've talked about this. Your audience didn't know me.
No, I know. Let's start there.
Okay.
Let's start with the After Hours, because then that's a natural kind of progression into the Schmodown. Because I also feel that the Schmodown, correct me if I'm wrong, because what I saw were those comments and stuff that you were just talking about with the audience. You've done something that I think is extraordinary in the YouTube space that I don't think you get enough credit for. You turned the audience. Because you went from AMC, from them having you being noticed, and then the Man of Steel thing where they turned on you, to where I remember when you would go back on Movie Talk and they would just be like, "Oh, Clarke,
Man of Steel,
all this stuff," and you would say something, and they wouldn't. Your opinion was valid, and but they were just using past things.
Right.
And then I saw this shift over the last 3 months that went. I mean, it was very wrestling for me. It was like someone who went from being, and not that you were to me a heel, but in their eyes, and then flipped to where you're like one of the top faces in the company. We'll talk about that in a sec, but. So the After Hours show. So for those of you who don't know what Clarke is talking about.
Which there aren't any of you listening to this.
No, there might be, because we took this, because the After Hours show was an idea of what we did, was just to get everybody just hammered and then bring up a whole bunch of crazy questions, talk to them on the air about it, and put it up on the air once, and then it's gone. You can't find it ever again. We did it once, and it was pretty successful. We had fun with it. Then Clarke and I were drunk at Comic-Con.
Yes.
And I told her, I told her about it. She said, "Well, what kind of questions?" And I remember we went back and forth with some questions. I could do that. It'd be fun. So that'd be a fun way to kind of introduce her to the Schmoes crew and the Schmoes audience. And so she came in, and for the first half an hour, it was exactly that.
Right.
I thought it was a lot of fun, and but then Ace, who is our intern, who does not drink, was serving Clarke and I full vats of liquor. Now, I don't know what you were drinking, but he was giving me full things of rum.
Mine was this grapefruit vodka that I brought in that, in theory, I could drink straight because it's grapefruit vodka.
But not at the amount that you were drinking.
Oh my God.
And the speed.
I had no idea.
Right.
We had no idea. For any of you guys listening, really think about it, okay? the turn happened so fast.
It was like a horror movie.
And it's like, why do you think that happened? Well, it's because we had no idea how much we were drinking.
It was amazing. I mean, like, Miri was throwing up outside afterwards. I mean, people were falling in the bushes. It was a mess.
By the way,
Ace almost killed us.
He almost killed us. And I never knew. So I had never met Bob Finstock before.
Oh, that was
So here's the other thing. So I had never known who Bob Finstock was. I'm back
You had heard about it, though.
I mean, kind of.
Okay.
Finstock. And I was like,
Right.
I don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm back in the green room having a lovely conversation with Tom.
Okay.
And just chatting, and he's so
A real
nice.
conversation, okay.
A real conversation
Before the
with
mask comes
Tom.
Out. Got it.
And I'm just like, oh, this is so nice. And then we go in, we start rolling, and here comes Finstock. And I was like, what the fuck is this guy's problem? Like,
Right.
I had no idea. And at that time, I was already, because I will say, to be completely honest with you, I felt like the questions that the ladies were getting were just a different version of which one of us would you fuck in a different way.
It was coming. That was the reason why when we did the personal questions game. That because to be fair for that the second after hours, there was a lot of they were written from a lot of the crew. And Alicia put a lot in there too, and it was just kind of thrown into a hat. But when you have that many dudes, and one thing, the majority of the questions were coming out, so that's why we changed when we went to personal questions. Sasha wrote like 95% of the personal questions game, and that's why it went off a lot better. So it was, but the problem was when we were all hammered that the structure went out the window.
Yes.
Because when the structure was there, it was a fun show.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, like, I'm just saying that I was already getting a little agitated just because it's like, I don't want to talk about, like, let's do a personal question type of thing. Like, let's be stern about it, like, whatever.
Yeah.
And then here comes Bob Finstock, and I'm like, fuck this guy.
And you guys went after, well, because you and I did go after each other, but I don't know if you remember, because I don't at all.
I don't remember.
I don't know what the hell was said. I have no idea, but apparently you and I were yelling at each other, screaming at each other, and people thought that we hated each other.
But what's so funny is that, and I've said this before, when we walked off the set, when it was over,
hugs.
It was hugs and like, oh my God, that was so fun.
We didn't even, it didn't even happen.
Didn't even miss a beat. It was just like, so it's just so funny.
Because from what they say, is that Finstock jumped in when you and I were yelling, and Finstock was like the sane one. Apparently. That's what they were saying.
Well, that is not a good look for anyone.
Not for anybody. So that's why the After Hours show will never happen again. But it's also, and that's why I think, going back into what I was saying before, to this shift that happened, because then it was the Man of Steel, it was, After Hours, drunk Clarke, that's all you got for a while. And that, because even when we set up that first match between you and Makuga, it was, Clarke Wolfe, she's going to be drunk when she goes in. And then you just steamroll Makuga, who at the time, Makuga was the number 2 contender.
Yeah.
You've done this twice, and you might do it a third time. You've taken away 2 title shots from people who were supposed to go for the belt. You take away Makuga's, but it also showed your personality. Your real personality came out and shined in that episode against Makuga. It was, yes, I know my stuff, and I'm having fun here, but it was this kind of, there's timid thing to it as well.
Right.
And my brother says it, and you say it too, you are the worst shit talker of all time, but in such a cute way that it's endearing. And that was my brother's favorite, and he loves how bad you shit talk.
Yeah,
he loves it.
It's awful.
Yeah, but it's great. But that's what you do. And so, did you see the shift after that first Schmoedown match?
Definitely. I mean, I had stayed away from all the Schmoes forums, because I didn't want to deal with it anymore, obviously.
Right.
And also, look, no one's proud of being a drunk idiot online.
Right.
I'm not, certainly.
Right.
And also, in case you guys haven't noticed, that's not my person. That's not who I am.
Right.
And so it's kind of like, I don't know. It was like, oh, this is frustrating. But I think that with the Schmoedown match, yes, the audience warmed to me for sure. And this is the thing, is that like I said, I didn't think about the fact that the Schmoes audience had never seen me before, because you and I are friends, Ellis and I are friends, Josh and I are friends.
Going into the after hours.
And so I was just like, oh, this was such a knucklehead. Like, what was I thinking from a producing standpoint?
Right.
Like,
you should have come on in the main show a few times.
Yes,
Yeah, right,
yes.
right.
This should not be, my drunk me should not be the introduction, right?
Right.
So, but yes, everybody thus far has been so welcoming and warming and very nice, and I'm really grateful for that. I really am, because I do take the Schmoedown seriously, which is why
you really do, and you do it in such a great way. Because this is also why I think to this day, one of the best things that we've ever done, that we've ever had, is the decision.
Oh.
Like, was that, when that went down, because people are going to ask, I know we're going to get Twitter questions about it too. Tell me what happened with JT. Did he reached out to you months, like a month before? So he reached out and emailed you, and you just saw this random email from JT that said, "Hey, you want to be my partner?"
I mean, yeah, it's basically what I said on the show. That wasn't, for as much as you are Vince McMahon, that's true. That is exactly what happened. And right as he asked me, Riley asked me.
Right.
It is as simple as that.
That was it.
That was it.
And was that crazy week?
Did you
see the mix of like how serious people were taking it?
People take that very seriously, and I get it, because I will say, Kristian, if I had known what casually mentioning this information to you would have done, I might not have done it. So it's probably good that
it worked out. It worked out.
It did work out. It was fun, and I think everybody ended up with a good pair.
I think so too. I think you and Riley are going to be something. And last thing on the Schmoedown, we have to bring up Sam Levine.
Oh God.
So Sam Levine is a guy who when we used to play this show on the Schmoes show, we just can't do it anymore because we don't have a TriCaster yet. But it was just called The Game, as simple as that. And we would play movie clips, and then you'd have to guess it. And I was pretty good at it. Riley was great at it, and Sam Levine was a mutant.
I'm sure.
It's like he was Mike Tyson in '86. Like the way he would, like there was a match. It was Riley, Aaron Darling versus Sam, and Sam won in like 16 seconds or something.
Wow.
It was something insane, or maybe like 36 seconds, whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was just something you'd never seen before. So everyone just assumed he was going to be this beast in trivia, and he's certainly good.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't say, and I'd say this if you were in the room. I think you're as good as he is.
Well, he knows. I think he knows more than me. However, I might know some things better than him.
Yeah.
So, I've said it before and I'll say it again. That fucking wheel. That wheel hates me. And I've tried to improve my strategy with the wheel. But at the end of the day, if the wheel gives you Pauly Shore movies, what are you gonna do?
You crushed it with those Pauly
Shore. Well, and that was just a periphery, pop culture thing. But if the wheel gives you real hard stuff, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And so I take Sam. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I listen to Sam's podcast with Kevin Pollak, and he knows his shit.
Right.
And I just feel like I'm gonna need the wheel to be real good to me.
It's going to be a great match, and I believe it happens at the end of July, early August. Actually, I think it's in August, but I'll have the exact date for you guys as far as when that airs, so make sure you check that out. All right, you ready to get some questions from Schmoeville?
Sure.
All right, so let's do it. So
let's hear it, Schmoeville.
I posted that I was going to be asking Clarke Wolfe some questions, and here we go. Here we go. First question is about the Schmoedown. If Riley didn't approach you for a potential team-up, would you have accepted JT's invitation?
Probably.
Really?
And the reason is...
Even if he did it the way that he did it. Because he did it, by the way he kind of turned on Finstock?
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh, okay.
I just want to be real clear. I didn't know that this was scandalous.
Right.
I thought, maybe their time is over. I don't know what I thought. I didn't think that this was a thing.
Right.
But yes, I probably would have said yes because, and I mentioned this on the decision, he and I have very complementary
topics that you
know.
Right,
yes, he knows things that I don't know, and I know things that he doesn't know, and I think that would have been a good combination.
All right, next question, and that was from Will J. Rev Brand. The next question is from Kyle Duran, who I wanted to get into Nightmares, so I'm glad you bring it up. Clarke, what kind of segments do you see in the future of Collider Nightmares? And he's a big fan. Collider Nightmares, to give you guys a breakdown, like Clarke and I mentioned, you and I had spoken about Collider Nightmares. We were talking about possibly doing a horror show back in the day, and then once Dennis and I were talking about the horror show, and there was only one person that should be running it, and she's sitting next to me right now, and it's doing great. I mean, it is doing great. We had hopes for it, and it has completely gone over those expectations. So the show's doing really good. I'm so glad for the fans that have found it.
Yeah.
So as far as Kyle's question here, any new segments that you see coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, fortunately right now we've had a lot of news. Like there has been a wealth of news that we can cover on the show, and that's been awesome. But as news starts to slow a little, I think you can look forward to seeing a lot of lists and a lot of debate segments.
I like that.
Definitely, because look, I mean, even though we're all friends, we all have very different perspectives on a lot of different things, and also you can look forward to seeing some fun guests. I think, like we're looking to bring Terry Metalis from 12 Monkeys in next week to be on the panel, and he's an uber nerd and he's the best. But also cool. He's like, and we had Ryan Turek on from Blumhouse.
That episode's up right now. You guys can go and find that on Collider Video, and if you didn't know, Collider Video houses Nightmares every Tuesday, and it's up right now on the Collider channel, so you should go check that out.
Definitely.
Okay, so we knew that question. Tyler Myers asks, who's your favorite scream queen of all time?
Ugh, this is such a hard question too. What do I always say? I would say, I think it's changed, actually. I think it's Nancy from A Nightmare on Elm Street
now. Jamie Lee Curtis up there for a while?
Yeah, she was.
She seems to be a stock answer for a lot of people, though, no?
She's done so many slasher movies.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's Nancy because Nancy is super proactive. She's very smart. She takes the situation into her own hands. It's part of the reason why I love Scream. It's in my top 5 favorite horror movies ever. But I never related to Sidney Prescott because she was too perfect.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense.
But Nancy seems like a real kid.
A little troubled too sometimes. That Nancy.
Yeah.
Logan Wilson asked this, I'm sure for his own person, but I actually have a follow up for it. But Logan Wilson says, "Would you ever date a fan?"
I mean,
it depends on the type of fan, right?
Yeah,
I would assume that's exactly what it's like. It's someone that ran into your party and was like, "Hey, I've seen you before, and I really liked you on the Schmoedown. I really liked you on Nightmares, and you're intriguing to me." And you have a conversation that starts there,
definitely,
as opposed to, I really liked it when you said this, and then there's some guy who's just like knows a little too much.
I mean, I think you said it very well.
That's what I thought. Yes. Okay, Rachel Cushing. Do you have any advice for women in the geek movie sphere who are looking to be taken seriously? So many people don't want to believe we're knowledgeable, and if you're pretty or witty or outgoing, or if you're not pretty or witty or outgoing enough, it's hard to make your voice heard. 2
things I would say. The first thing I would say is start writing.
She does, by the way. Rachel Cushing is a phenomenal writer. Great writer.
Great. So keep writing. Find the outlets that you like and you respect, and do your best to keep your eye. I've seen all of them. They often post that they're looking for writers or whatever, and having those recognizable brands in your arsenal is super helpful. And then the other thing I would say is be as authentic as possible. I mean, really, like, if you don't like something, but do your best to rise above the internet nonsense of just like, well, this sucks.
Right.
Do your best to be nuanced and to actually think about it. And I think that will allow you to stand out. And also, when I say be authentic, like for me with horror, I realized really quickly, or with geek culture in general, I realized very quickly that, like, there aren't when people think of a lady horror fan, they don't necessarily think of what I look like. And I was like, well, this is something different that is authentic to me, that I'm educated on, that I love and I'm passionate about. And I think people, no matter what, will always respond to your passion.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's absolutely right. And Rachel is someone who writes with passion, so I think that's excellent advice.
Keep going, Rachel.
Yes. Okay, let's see. Ben Brazilla, have you guys reviewed any of the footage of the last Drunk Schmoes show? And do Kristian and Clarke have any regrets on the way they were acting towards each other?
Again, if I remembered, I could probably tell you. Which is so funny, by the way, because I remember so much of that night very clearly. Yeah. And like even after, I remember I remember walking off the set. As soon as I walked off that set, it's like crystal clear. It was something about.
It was being in the arena.
That's gotta be it.
It was it, because I don't remember anything that was said, to be honest. So yeah, we never had any regrets because we don't even know what the hell we were saying.
And also, I never want to see that footage
same
again.
here. let's see. So now I'm going to try to get to some of the Twitter questions that I have.
Twitter.
Oh, this is a good one. Okay, so this is a good question. You got to be honest here.
Okay.
At S Gonzalez 15 says, and Miri did this too. You can break it down however you want. First impression of the crew when you first met them.
Oh, that's a good question. So Mark Ellis, I felt like I became fast friends with, and.
Would you just like he's a funny guy? He was a nice guy.
Super nice.
That was your first impression.
Yeah. Really nice and really funny. Yeah, I mean, that's for him. And then Ken, I felt like was like kind of like gave me the stare down.
The pit boss.
Yeah, he was like tough. And but now, I mean, I know him really.
Teddy bear.
Yeah, but at first I was like, "Ooh."
Everybody feels like that with him.
What is up with that?
I've known him for so long that I've never seen that because I did stand up with him, and he was he's been a friend of mine for like 13 years. So when I listen to the Schmoes podcast, or I listen to any like Ace or all these guys talk about how they were always intimidated by Ken, that is fascinating because I don't see him that way, but a lot of people do.
I get that. I definitely get it because he's running the show.
Right.
Somebody has to keep everything in check, and he's always like dressed wearing a suit or something. So and then with you, Kristian, like I feel like you're a really cool, easygoing guy for the most part. Like I felt like the first conversation I really remember with you is Comic-Con. Is at that party at Comic-Con.
Right.
And it was just easy to talk to you, and I certainly like talking to you. So that was that. And then
I'll throw some at you.
Okay.
How about let's go with some of the ladies. How about we'll go with Miri.
Miri was my first impression with her was her gorgeous hair. That's the first thing I remember. But Miri, I remember being so warm and welcoming and sweet, really sweet. Sasha, when we rode over, so me, Sasha, and Alicia Malone all shared a lift over to After Hours.
Right, that was the first time you met Sasha.
Ever met Sasha?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she was really nice. And I was nervous, of course, and she's like, "Oh, don't be nervous," or whatever. But I didn't know her persona. I didn't know anything about her really.
Right.
And so and Alicia said this on the After Hours show, and I think it's a really good, astute observation. You guys all play characters, and what's really interesting is if you don't know the character, but you know the person, because I feel like I met all of the people first. And then once I did the show, I was like, whoa, this is a little different.
Times 10.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting.
Let's see, how about, we know what you Finstock.
I love Finstock.
You do love him. That's
yes,
good. That's good to talk about.
I love Bob Finstock now. Now that I understand, now that I get it, I think he's hilarious. And Bob Finstock is also one of the fastest motherfuckers.
He's fast.
Like, he is so witty and funny.
Yeah.
And my dad called me after one of the Schmoedowns, after my...
Your dad calls you about all your Schmoedowns,
He does.
right?
He loves the Schmoedowns.
Yeah.
He calls me Classy Clarke now.
I love that.
He called me about Finstock, and he was like, "Oh man, what that guy said about Little Red Riding Hood and the wolf, or who's he about like Clarke Wolfe? Who's he?"
He said he goes, and I'll be the big bad wolf, and she'll be Red Riding Hood because she has red hair.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Yeah,
so I love Finstock.
There's a bunch. I mean,
Makuga. So speaking of characters and the personas you guys play, the first time I ever really talked to Josh was because I remember Buffalo Wild Wings after that Schmoes show, but it was like very casual. At the Pop Fix thing that I was doing with Aaron Darling a few years ago, we had a party, we had a lunch party, and Ellis and Josh came.
I was supposed to go to that.
Yeah, and they came a little late, so I had nowhere to be, and I was like, let's talk. And so I was talking to both of them, and I had never met Josh, really talked to Josh before, and I was really impressed with how, I think Josh is really smart. And I think he plays a goofball.
Yeah.
He's very thoughtful. He asks questions and he wants to know things, but not out of being polite. He's sincerely curious.
Right, like having a good conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And because people, I think, and he said it himself, might look at him going, "Oh, that's just a dopey frat guy," and that's not who he is at all.
It's not, but that is the character he plays.
Sometimes he does for sure. I think, and obviously we talked about JT, and am I missing anybody?
I don't know.
I think I got everybody. All right, let's see. Going into, we talked about that already. This is from @Drew Gardner. What is your favorite piece of movie memorabilia you own and why?
Oh, wow. Wow. I have a bunch of old posters. Okay. They're reprints, of course, but those are like, I have one from The Great Dictator, which is Charlie Chaplin. I have a Cabaret poster that I love. I have and I have this poster from The Babadook. It's a Mondo poster. Yeah, and it is huge, and I thought it was one of the little ones, and then it came and it was like,
it's like for the bus.
Oh my God, I mean, it was enormous, and I was like, well, now I have a giant Babadook poster.
That's amazing.
And then I have a little... There's this woman who's an artist, and she takes My Little Ponies, I know it sounds crazy, but she repurposes them with clay and paint into characters. Like characters from movies, pop culture, and they are absolutely beautiful. And I bought one when she just started her business of Ludo from the Labyrinth.
Oh, Ludo.
Labyrinth. And we're celebrating 30th anniversary.
30 is crazy.
Labyrinth is my favorite movie. So,
of all time.
Yeah,
it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Don't make a remake, please.
Yeah, no thank you.
All right, guys, that's it. That was my conversation with the classy one, Clarke Wolfe, and this is exactly what I thought. Open, honest, and I'm sure we're going to have more of these conversations. You'll be back to join me on the show
anytime.
Again. Please look for Clarke Wolfe at Twitter, at Clarke Wolfe with an E, both on the F and at the K. And make sure that you go to Instagram to do the same thing. And check out Nightmares. That is every Tuesday on Collider Video. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, just for you guys, FYI, if you're like, I don't really like horror movies, would I like Collider Nightmares? We're a genre show, so we talk about sci-fi, fantasy, horror, all kinds of genre, and in different mediums too. So I think if you're interested in movies and pop culture in general and TV, you'll probably still like the show. At least I hope. I've had a lot of horror fans or non-horror fans tweet at me and say, I don't even like horror, but I love your show.
I've seen that a lot too.
That really makes me feel good.
Yeah, it says a lot. Okay, we're gonna go look for the Russian spy, but until then, we will see you next week. And thank you once again, Clarke, for joining me.
Thank you, Kristian.